Go ahead and turn to Micah chapter 5. And it's been a while since we've been in the book of Micah. I think May 14th or so several months ago. So we're going to do a little review and then jump into the first couple verses here of Micah chapter 5. But if you remember, Micah is prophesying to the people of Judah in the southern kingdom, and specifically the residents of Jerusalem. And he's preaching during the reigns of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. There's you can find in verse 1. And during Hezekiah's reign, God has made Hezekiah to be very prosperous. And the economy is booming, and a lot of things are happening, despite the destruction of the northern kingdom and all the different refugees coming down from the north. And because of this economic prosperity, the wealthy have become more materialistic and had begun exploiting the poor around them. And if you look there in Micah chapter 2, we studied this several months ago. In verses 1 and 2, it says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage." And people here in Jerusalem are using their position and their religion to get what they wanted. And it's not just businessmen, it's also religious leaders and political leaders. And they're using their wealth to buy out these small properties and to exploit the poor around them. And Micah is just a countryman from a fertile area of Israel. And God has called Micah to preach his word to the Jerusalem and to the Israelites, and to declare against them their sin of what they're doing wrong, and to proclaim the judgment that God is going to bring upon them. And in Micah chapter 5, Micah has a message of good news for his people. However, he can't give it to them before first helping them realize their situation that they're in. And we looked at this several months ago, Micah chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "Now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek." And here Micah is warning them that because of Israel's sin, that they're soon going to be under siege against an army bigger than them, and they're not going to be able to defeat them. And that judgment will come because of their sin. And the judge of Israel here in verse 1, commentators believe that it could be referring to the king of Judah, and possibly when Nebuchadnezzar comes from Babylon and defeats Jerusalem, it could be referring to the king Zedekiah here. The ruler, the king, the judge, is smitten upon the cheek with a rod. He is humiliated and brought to ruin. And this is the direction that Israel is headed. Because of their sin, they are going to be brought to destruction. And them as a nation, their political leader, their king, is going to be humiliated. But then there in verse 2, we have that phrase, "but thou," signifying that there's something different coming, right? And we all know this verse. Every Christmas, this verse is quoted sometime as it's found in the book of Matthew, because this verse points to Jesus, right? The Messiah. And even the Pharisees and the religious leaders during Jesus' time, they knew that this verse and this prophecy was messianic, right? Verse 2, "But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting." And if you're like me, you've grown up in a church all your life, you've heard this verse thousands of times, hundreds of times. But if you're also like me, you maybe haven't heard the rest of this passage. And the context is what actually makes it messianic, and it points to the Messiah king that is to come. And hundreds of verses prophesy about the Messiah, and many of them refer to his first coming, but also many of them refer to his second coming and to his millennial reign. And we've mentioned it in the previous passages of Micah, of how Micah is prophesying of a future time when God will bring all the people of Israel back together. And the Messiah, the ruler, will reign over them and will defeat all of their enemies. And we've talked about that before, but here in Micah chapter 5, he goes into a little bit more detail about the Messiah king. And although verse 2 prophesies of Jesus' first coming, the rest of the passage there into verse 6 deals with the Messiah, who he is, and what he's going to do during the millennial reign of Christ there. And so in this prophecy of Micah, I want to take just a few minutes tonight and look at three overarching characteristics of Jesus, who is the Messiah, that maybe can be an encouragement and challenge to us tonight. So let's first read Micah chapter 1, Micah chapter 5. We'll start in verse 1 and go through verse 6 here. Now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. Therefore will he give them up until the time that she which travaileth hath brought forth. Then the remnant of his brethren shall return unto the children of Israel. In verse 4, and he shall stand and feed in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty or the authority of the name of the Lord his God, and they shall abide. For now shall he, talking about the Messiah, this ruler, shall be great unto the ends of the earth. And this man shall be the peace. When the Assyrian shall come into our land, and when he shall tread in our palaces, then shall we raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. And they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod and the entrances thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian, when he cometh into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders. Let's go ahead and open tonight with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I ask that as we look at this passage and we explore what it says about your Messiah, Lord, about Jesus Christ and who he is, Lord, would you open our hearts and our ears, Lord, to receive your truth. Lord, would you convict us, Lord, of where we maybe fall short or where we maybe have not trusted you for who you are. Lord, I pray would you be with me in my words as I speak. Lord, I pray would you work in us tonight, Lord, through your word. We ask all these things in your name. Amen. So Judah's leaders here, right, they have dragged the nation into corruption and judgment. But right when everything looks hopeless, Micah here pivots and points to a promised Davidic king. And there in verse number 2 there, but thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, out of thee is going to become a ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. We talked about this back in May, that this ruler is going to be from the line of David. And it calls back to God's promise to David back in 2 Samuel chapter 7, and thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever. Thy throne shall be established forever. And God repeats this promise that, David, you will have a ruler who will reign forever. Right? And the people, Israel, have waited and waited for this over the years. And here, God again affirms his promise that it will come. And this prophecy of this ruler will come from Bethlehem. Right? This insignificant place is going to come, out of it is going to come a powerful ruler, a kingly heritage from the line of David. And Micah even emphasizes the royal blood of this ruler with that phrase there at the end of verse 2, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting. And as I was searching this phrase and what does it actually mean, I came across this idea that in Hebrew culture and language, direction and time are correlated, and that they use similar words sometimes. See, in our Western minds, when we're walking down a path, the past is what is behind us, right? Because we've already been there, and so as we're walking down a path, behind us is past, and then ahead of us is the future. But in Hebrew culture and the Hebrew mind, what is in front of you is the past, because you can see it, and you know what it is. And you can visually, you can see all the details of what has happened because it's the past. Because when something has already happened, you already know what it is, right? And so then whereas the future is behind you, right? You can't see the future, and so you can't see behind you. And so in Hebrew culture and time, that direction is a little bit flip-flop from our Western mindset. And so because of this, they use the same word for the front, this word of old, right? In verse 2 there, a kedem, it can mean east or in front of, or it can mean ancient past. And so here Micah is using this word kedem to refer to the ancient past, that this ruler has come from ancient past. And this same word is used in Genesis chapter 3 when it says there, so he drove out the man, and he placed at the east, kedem, of the Garden of Eden, a cherubim. And this same word kedem, it's used as a direction, but here in Micah it's referred to as a time. And the same word as referring to ancient past. And here Micah, he's emphasizing that this Davidic ruler is from David's line. And this is a reminder of the faithfulness of God. That God, he always keeps his promises. And he's reminding his people yet again, I haven't forgot about you. I remember my promises that I've made to you. I remember the promises that I made to your ancestor, to David. And I'm reassuring you again that, yes, there will be a ruler coming from Bethlehem who is of David's line, who is a blood relative of David. And we know this, that this prophecy is going to come to pass because of what we know from the New Testament, that Jesus fulfills this prophecy and many others of the Messiah, that he was born of Bethlehem. He was born of the line of David. But this ruler is more than just from the line of David. He is also has divine qualities. He is eternal. And there in that last phrase, from everlasting, this is another directional word. It literally means a place hidden beyond the horizon. And looking far ahead and looking in front of you, something beyond something that you can see, a time hidden beyond the distant time. And that the literal translation there, referring to just the eternity past, that this ruler has no origin. Not only is this ruler going to be from the line of David, but he's also divine. He has no origin at all. And that the Messiah will be the divine Son of God. And Jesus, he exists as the second person of the Trinity. In John chapter 1, verses 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Right? Jesus, he created the universe. He is God, and he has no origin. Yet he allowed himself to become human. He allowed himself to be born of man, from the line of David, to fulfill this prophecy. And that not only would this ruler have royal blood, but he would also be divine. However, as after the Messiah is born, comes verse 3. It says that therefore will he give them up. That God would give Israel up to their enemies until the time that he appoints. This kind of has that same idea of once Jesus comes, once this ruler comes, he's born, but then there's going to be a time when God is going to give Israel up to their enemies. We can even kind of see that now. And for an undisclosed amount of time, Israel will remain in this uncertain state of where God has given them up to their enemies and their adversaries. Now again, this doesn't mean that God is not aware of the injustices that are going on against Israel. This doesn't mean that God has abandoned Israel. Think about this, that Israel has waited thousands and thousands of years for the ruler to come and to bring Israel all back together. And because the rest of this prophecy, verses 3 through 6, has not yet been fulfilled. And it seems that has God abandoned him? Has this promise, the verse 2 has come to pass. We know that, we see that in the New Testament, but then has God just abandoned Israel and that the rest of it has not come to pass? And we know that's not true. That God does not rescind his promises. And that God is faithful. Right? And that, yes, God, it says right here in verse 3, he has given them up until the time that she which travaileth had brought forth. Then the remnant of his brethren shall return unto the children of Israel. And that one day God will bring Israel back together again. And that God is faithful and he will keep his promises. He does not abandon his people. He does not abandon us. Deuteronomy chapter 7 says, know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. And on a short side, right, a generation is maybe 25 years, 40 years, 50 years, however you look at it, and that God is forever faithful. He will always keep his covenant. And that even though this doesn't seem like it's come to pass yet, God is faithful, that he has not abandoned Israel, and that what he says, he will do. He will keep his promises. But until then, it says here in verse 3 that Israel will endure much pain and affliction. But then it says there, they'll be brought much joy. That idea of the picture there of someone, the woman who is pregnant, right? She which travaileth hath brought forth. And as I was studying this, it was kind of a cool light bulb moment when I understood what this verse 3 actually means, is that, yes, for a time that God will let Israel be afflicted, but then there's going to be a time when there's going to be a tribulation, right? Where there's going to be great pain and suffering as when a woman gives birth, right? There's great pain, but then there's great joy. And that joy that follows is this millennial reign of Christ, when the people come back. And then we get into verse 4 there, that not just who the Messiah is, but what is he going to do when he reigns. And that not only is the Messiah the promised Davidic king, but the Messiah will also be the powerful shepherd king. And there's verse 4, when God brings the remnant of Israel back together, it says in verse 4, and he, the ruler, this Messiah, shall stand and feed in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they shall abide. For now shall he be great unto the ends of the earth. The Messiah will stand in the strength of the Lord. This word stand is not just the casual word for standing up, but it's the idea of active, authoritative posture. And that in the Old Testament, when a king or a prophet or a priest, when they stood, it referred to that they were assuming their responsibilities and their authority and in the official posts that they had. And the same concept can be found in Deuteronomy chapter 18, where God is describing what a Levitical priest should be like. And in verse 5, God explains why a Levite priest is special, saying, for the Lord thy God hath chosen him out of all thy tribes to stand, right, to take up their authority, their position, to minister in the name of the Lord, and with him and his sons forever. And that when the Messiah, when he stands in the strength of the Lord, this is Jesus, the king, stepping into his role of the divine ruler of Israel and of the world. And this is a dramatic turn of events from the crisis of the previous verses. That all the different conflicts and things going on, that when the king takes his position, is firmly anchored, and that he stands, and that nothing can overcome his rule and reign. That his reign will remain. Unlike the weak king that Judah's had in verse 1 there, who was humiliated by their enemies, this Messiah, this king doesn't make mistakes. This king will be undefeated, and he will not be replaced. I'm reading this history book that goes through the kings and rulers of England for the last hundreds of years, and it reminds me of how young our nation is. But I love history, and kind of just going through it, and it's quite fascinating how many kings England has had, and just how short all these different rulers reigned. And even the longest reign, it wasn't that long of a time. But the concept, the idea that Jesus, the Messiah, will reign for eternity, that he will stand in authority there. In verse 4, he shall stand and feed in the strength of the Lord, that the Messiah, he's going to take care of his people just like a shepherd will. And this picture is no stranger to us. Jesus being the good shepherd. There in John chapter 10, he is the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. There in the book of Hebrews, it also refers to Jesus as the great shepherd of the sheep, who exercises his divine authority over God's people, and that Jesus, the Messiah, will take care of his people. For all these years, they've been scattered, they've been judged, they've been wandering, and God has sent prophet after prophet after them. But there's going to be a time when Jesus, the Messiah, will be king, and he will reign over all of them. He will take care of them. He will direct them into what they should do. He will feed them. He will provide for them as their good shepherd. He will keep them from wandering away, right? The Messiah, interestingly, does all of this in the strength and majesty of God and in the authority of God, in that his reign perfectly follows the will of the Father. And this is very similar to David's reign, right? The idea that when David reigned, the reason for his success was that God was with him. It wasn't that David tried to do it in his own strength. It was because of David and his abilities and his personality. He sought after God and asked for God to help him rule and reign. And that is why David has had his success. And the Messiah in his authority, his authority, his strength will come from God the Father. See, we as humans, we like our independence, right? We like to be self-sufficient. I remember the first time that I got a car. It was COVID year, and I was working on Amazon trying to save up money, and I was praying and asking the Lord for a vehicle. I wanted a blue Honda Odyssey. I know, I'm a minivan guy. I'm weird. I know that. No, there's a reason, though. It's because at the time we lived in Ohio, and we went to college eight hours away, and so traveling back and forth, I had 4 siblings that were in college or graduating at the time. So I was like, okay, minivan, makes lots of practical sense, good gas mileage mostly, and lots of space. So I was praying for a blue minivan, and I was looking around and saving up money, and the Lord provided one, had just the right amount of cash set aside, and I bought it, and it was great. I could drive where I wanted to, do errands that I didn't want to do, and I could get the jobs that I needed to. I could drive myself, didn't have to wait for somebody else to take me and whatnot. And we love our independence. Also came with a nice gas bill and insurance bill, but we love our independence. We love to take care of ourselves, to live independent of other people and other things, right? But however, living independent of the strength of God is spiritual suicide, right? So often we like to just put our head down and do our thing, right? God has given us, he's gifted us with different abilities and talents, and he's given us wonderful different personalities to accomplish different things, right, in the different tasks and roles that we have. But I think sometimes we like to do our own thing, right? We like to use our own abilities as an excuse to just kind of forget about needing God's help in it, right? But yet Jesus, the Messiah, who as the divine King, he shouldn't need any help, right? But no, here he is. His strength is coming from the Lord. His authority comes from God, who is above all. And this honestly was the theme of Christ's earthly ministry, right? If you remember back to the New Testament, how many times did he tell people that he sought the Lord's will, that he followed the Holy Spirit in this direction, right? And there in John chapter 14 and verse 10, he's talking to his disciples, and he's reminding them of what he does and why he does what he does, why he says what he says. He's saying there, believest thou not that I am in the Father and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself. I don't just say what I want, but I say them because of the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the works. That Jesus displayed a life of complete dependence on God. And if the Messiah surrendered his independence, why do we sometimes fight so hard to keep ours? How many times do we make an important decision before entrusting it to God? Right? For those of us in leadership positions or in leadership influence, whether a parent or in the workplace or even in school or with peers of influence, right? How many times do we seek God's wisdom and strength to help us to lead well, to make the right decisions? It's amazing what happens when we entrust our lives to God, when we ask for his leadership. Right? And here that's exactly what the Messiah King is doing. That his strength, he is standing and feeding in the strength of the Lord his God and in the authority of God. Not only is the Messiah taking care of his people here, but it also has the idea of the word abide here, the idea that there is peace and restoration that the people have. that the Christ, the Messiah, he's going to take care of them, and they're going to live in safety. They're not going to have anything to fear, right? Messiah's kingdom will extend far beyond Israel. And we've already discussed this in Micah chapter 3 and chapter 4 there, that Christ's reign is universal, right, throughout the entire world. Not only will the Messiah be the promised Davidic king and a powerful shepherd king, but thirdly, the Messiah will also be the Prince of Peace. And the Messiah does not merely give peace, though. There in verse 5 there, and this man shall be the peace. Right? This isn't just the Messiah giving peace, but the Messiah is the peace. And the word used for this word for peace here is shalom, right? The idea of not just a temporary truce or absence of noise, but the idea of total security, total safety. And that the Messiah himself is this personal source of peace. Paul echoes this in Ephesians chapter 2, right? For he, about Christ, is our peace. He who made both one and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us. He is the peace. We've had several bad storms recently here in Chicago. I was gone for a couple of them this last week, but I did some research here, and I guess Illinois itself has had 203 tornadoes just this year, in contrast to the average number, one source, and there's probably lots of sources with lots of different averages, but one source says apparently we get 54 tornadoes on average. And I've only lived in the area for a year or two, but we've already had a lot of storms, right? But the idea of Jesus being our peace, not just giving peace, right, is the difference between receiving an instruction manual for here's how to escape a tornado, right? It's the difference between that and then having a personal a guide who knows everything about tornadoes, everything about the weather, everything about even where the tornado is going to pass by, having that person with you, directing you to where you should go, bringing you to safety, and taking care of you during the storm. That's the difference. That Jesus doesn't just give peace, but he is the peace. And that he is our peace. The Messiah not only is the peace, but he also provides complete victory over every physical threat. There in verse 5, it says, and this man shall be the peace when the Assyrian shall come into our land. And the Assyrian was the common enemy of Israel at the time, and Micah uses this as just the picture of all enemies of Israel. And when the Assyrian shall come to our land, and when he shall tread in our palaces, then we shall raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men. And these 7 shepherds and 8 principal men, these are a Hebrew kind of pairing of idiom, and that the idea of completeness and abundance, and that the Messiah is going to completely destroy them, that the army that's going to come against them is going to be insurmountable, and that these enemies are going to be destroyed. Christ doesn't just supply barely enough protection, but he provides a superabundance of victory and leadership to defend his people. And in verse 6, and they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod and the entrances thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian when he cometh into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders. And that the Messiah has complete victory. That there is nothing that Israel will have to fear. Not only does the Messiah bring physical peace, but we know from the New Testament that the Messiah also brings spiritual peace and reconciliation. That sin has made mankind an enemy of God, but Jesus paid that debt on the cross to make peace between God and man. Right? Giving us a justification, right? And rest. Romans chapter 5, verse 1 says, therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. If you're here tonight and you haven't trusted in Jesus Christ alone to save you, then you do not have this peace between God. And that peace that overcomes sin, and that takes away the fear of judgment, because judgment has already been paid on the cross, right? This peace can only come from Christ, who is the Prince of Peace. And for those of us who have placed our trust in Jesus, we have this everlasting peace, right? We do not have to fear, whether a fear of sin or a fear of anything on this physical earth, because Jesus is our peace. Not only does the Messiah bring peace between us and God, but the Messiah finally also brings spiritual peace between each other. Right? In the whole history of the Old Testament, you had the distinction of Jew and Gentile. Jew and Gentile, Gentile and Jew, not Drew, I was looking at Drew when I said his name. Right? You had this distinction, right? Jews stayed away from the Gentiles. You didn't eat with them. You didn't go to their house. Gentiles just thought Jews were weird, and you just stayed away from them, right? And they were very different. And Pastor, as we're going through the book of Acts, and we're getting up on that, we're on that section there where the Gentiles now have all the riches of the Jews, and they have access to God through Jesus Christ. That this peace is between also the Jews and the Gentiles, that they do not have to have any more controversy and conflict anymore, right? Jesus brings salvation. Jesus brings peace. And that he unites all of us together under him. That yes, there may be a person that we don't get along with, but it's because of Jesus Christ that we can. And when the Messiah comes to set up his millennial kingdom, he will bring unity, right, between everyone. And just like Micah, our world is full of corruption. Right? Just like Micah, our world is full of instability and anxiety and sin. However, we can look at this passage, we can know, especially there in verse 2, that God is faithful. That God it keeps his promises. That what God has prophesied will come to pass. There, even especially in the idea that Jesus, the Messiah, is the promised Davidic king, right? That he will come to rule and reign, and that he has already come, he will come again. Jesus is the shepherd king, right? Not only in the future, but he is also our shepherd king now. That he wants to provide, wants to take care of us, right? Jesus is our peace, and this peace that is available to us today. And these are promises that we can be assured of, even now. Rest under the leadership of your shepherd king. Trust his divine authority, and let his peace guard your heart, right, as we wait expectantly for his return. And as we look ahead to one day, we'll be able to witness this. One day we'll be able to witness Jesus Christ on the throne, ruling and reigning and having victory over all of the enemies, of all the enemies of Israel and all the enemies of God. And we'll be able to shout right along with Israel and rejoice that God is faithful and that God will fulfill his promises. Let's go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much for this look in your word. Lord, I thank you for the reminder that, Lord, you are faithful. Lord, you do keep your promises. Lord, I am so thankful, Lord, that you do promise to take care of us. Lord, you do promise to provide for us. Lord, that you do not abandon your people. Lord, I'm so thankful, Lord, for your peace that you give us. Lord, peace between us and you, but Lord, also peace between us and others. Lord, I pray that even now, Lord, this week, would you help us? Lord, you work in our hearts and minds, Lord, to be more like you, Lord, and to trust you for who you are.